Okay, everyone, I wanted to know, I know there's a few of you watching right now. Is there an echo today with the microphones? Just trying to get everything figured out. If there is, I can take one of them off. All right, that's good to know. Is there still an echo? Oh, wait, no. Huh. Oh boy, hang on a second, guys. Alright, hopefully I'm back. I think I deleted the wrong thing. Okay. I have no idea. Alright, is the echo still there? All right. Can you guys hear me okay? I figure that's just what's going to have to happen. Before we had two mics going, and I think that was the issue. Okay. Thanks, guys. Perfect. I have just 3 questions to practice today, and then I would suggest practicing some of the stuff that's on the study guide. I hope, because it seems like the No-Re account everybody can get into and everything seems good there. So I have a feeling that's what we're going to stick with, is just the no reassignments. I still would like to do the ALEKS because it's less, but you guys can let me know what you think is best. I'm not assigning all that much, and I want to make sure that we keep track. So that's why when I'm asked later, what is the participation, what is the assignments completed, that I'm being reasonable for an honors class, but also reasonable for the fact that we're doing all this at home. There were some other suggestions, and I'm not sure how I feel about them. I may ask or try to do in Google Classroom a survey about the format Zoom. Again, all this technology stuff is easy for you guys, just a tad bit overwhelming for me. But it was something I tried early this morning with some of the teachers just to see what we thought. So don't be surprised if that shows up as well. Before we get started, I have this problem that I have ready for us to go over because it looks different from some of the others. I have one that looks similar to the problems that we've been doing, and then I have one that's quite involved that uses 2 different concepts that we've already looked at. So those are the only 3. These are the only 3 that I have for us. And at that point, we would be done for the day, and I would just have you completing the no-re stuff and making sure your notes are up to date and practicing the study guide. And then, of course, everything will be listed in Google Classroom. So you let me know if that's good, and then you guys can ask questions at the end as to what else you have. So does that sound like a good plan for the day? Awesome. So the first thing that I want to do with this problem is make it look like all of the rest, and that means we are going to have to put that guy over 1 so that we can figure out what the common denominator is. And once we have the common denominator, the nice part about this question is our LCM, or our common denominator, is simply x plus 4. There is nothing in the first one that we need to worry about. So I am going to multiply just this one by x plus 4 on top and bottom. When that happens, we know that we're going to have to do the FOIL method to everything. And then make sure what we're looking at is we have 2x squared plus 8x minus 5x minus 20 over, and again, I'm going to put it all over that common denominator so I don't have to rewrite this so many times. Now, here's the trick. The reason I did a couple of these today with the minus sign is this minus sign is in front of all of this. So we don't necessarily think about it, but it has to go to both the x and the 8. So when we write this down, it's going to be minus x plus 8, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So again, we distributed here with the FOIL method, and then we needed to distribute that minus sign to everything in that quantity. And so we have 8 minus 5 is 3. 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. So we end up here with 2x squared plus 2x, and then I have minus 20 plus 8 is going to be minus 12 all over x plus 4. So I just want to see, and I'm going to do this on another sheet of paper just to see if I factor out 2 from x squared and then an x and then a minus 6. The reason I'm doing that is before I put it on my paper here and get it messy, I want to see if this is factorable to get the middle number, which I thought it was, because this would be x plus 3, x minus 2. And when we look, the 3 times the 2 is going to give us the negative 6, but the 3 minus the 2 gives us that positive 1. Now, the issue is it's not going to cancel with that x plus 4, but again, if this was something that would have canceled, we would have had to cancel top to bottom. So before I did any of that, I wanted to make sure that it did work. Any of these answers, I can honestly say, depending upon what your multiple choice option is or what the purpose of the problem is, these are all equivalent. Again, it's just a matter of how they want our answer written. As I look to see, again, how it might be written just for our textbook, it is written factored out. So our textbook has everything factored out. I've seen it left like this, but this would be our final answer. And again, it is just to make sure that we know whether or not we have to simplify top to bottom. And because none of them do, that's where we stop. So in this problem, the reason again I wanted to do this problem was because we didn't have a denominator here, so we needed to put it over 1. We needed to make sure that we paid attention to the minus sign. And again, that is probably going to be the biggest thing that a lot of us forget, is that has to happen. And even though each of these are the exact same final answer, this one, we're going to want to factor all the time just to make sure that they don't cancel out. So don't forget, the problem that was originally given to you was written in black, so that if you wanted to try it again, you could do that part on your own and then try it and look at your notes or watch the video again. But otherwise, that's where we're at with this one. Any questions before I go on to the second problem? Now I am going to push this up, but I'll wait a couple seconds just to see if there's any questions on that first one. And if I don't see anything pop up, then I'll move on to the second question. Okay, looks like we're good. So in this problem, I'm going to factor everything first. Again, you can see that I do have that minus sign there in case we forget what to do with that minus sign. And I'm going to rewrite the problem in our first step with it factored. So we have our 2p minus 3, and our denominator here is going to be p minus 3, p minus 2. And again, the whole reasoning is the negative times the negative is a positive, but negative 3 and negative 2 are negative 5. So again, we have to be really good at our factoring in order to make this happen. I have minus 5. Now in the bottom here, that's the difference of two squares. And I want to make sure that we remember that's a factoring pattern. Oops. And when we have the difference of two squares, it is supposed to, does anybody know who's participating today? What the difference of two squares, if you wrote it out on your computer, what that's going to look like in the denominator? Awesome. Thank you, Noah. You are correct. So we do have p minus 3, p plus 3. Good. Thank you. So we will factor the bottom. So now that means when we look at what our LCM has to be, our LCM, and again, this makes it a lot easier when we don't have numbers involved, like just numbers in front or just variables like our monomials. We need one of each of these. So because we already have a p minus 3 in both, we only need one of them in both. We need a p minus 2 in both, and we need a p plus 3 in both. So all three of those would have to appear in each of them. So that means if this one already has a p minus 3 and a p minus 2, the only thing this one needs is a p plus 3. And what we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. This one already has the minus 3 plus 3, so the only thing this one needs is a p minus 2. And what we do on the bottom, we have to do on the top. So again, FOIL method, and I'm not going to rewrite it all. I'm going to do the FOIL method where we have our 2p times p, which would give me 2p squared. Our 2p times 3, which would give us a positive 6p. Negative 3 times p is a negative 3p. And then a negative 3 times 3 is our negative 9. I know that this negative 5 has to go to p, so that's a negative 5p. And our negative 5 has to go to the negative 2, and that's why that's a positive 10. All of that shares the exact same common denominator, or the LCM. And it kind of saves some space doing it that way, at least on your paper. You can be much more meticulous than I if you wish. So no other p squares, so we have 2p squared. 6p minus 3p is a 3p. 3 minus 5 would be a minus 2p. Negative 9 plus 10 is a plus 1. And I don't think I missed anything before I keep going. And then on the bottom we have p minus 3, p minus 2, p plus 3. And again, what I want to make sure of is that it's not factorable. And because of the 2 and the 1, if I use the AC method, that's still going to be 2. There are no factors of a positive 2 that would add together to be a negative 2. So we end up knowing that this is our final answer. Now, I didn't put anything in here about domain. And again, we know that the only reason we would have to list it is if it's said to. So kind of like up here, if domain was a question, we would have to make sure that we said x could not equal negative 4. So if domain was a question, in the first one we would have to say x couldn't equal negative 4. And in this question, if domain was a question, we'd have to say p, I was almost going to write x, p couldn't equal 3, 2, or negative 3. Again, it's not asking us that when we're asked just to simplify, so there's no reason for us to list it unless it's being asked. All right, any questions on those first two as I kind of pause to let you copy? All right, let's go ahead then. If you have a question, you can come back, and I will then move to the last one, and then I'll see if you guys have any questions that you need me to answer. So this guy has both our addition and our division worked into one. So I am going to suggest that you do the problem in parts. So for instance, the top, we would want to practice this as if it looks just like that. So no other problem underneath it, and just work with the LCM here. So we know that our common denominator, our least common multiple, would have to have one of each. So x minus y and x plus y. We would need one of each in the denominator. So right here in the problem, I'm going to go ahead and multiply the top by x plus y, and obviously the bottom x plus y. This one is going to be x minus y and x minus y. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to concentrate on just separating the problem enough so that we're doing two separate ones. Hey, knock it off. No. Sorry. They were good so far. Somebody jumped upstairs and apparently turned him on. So, go to bed. So now in the top, we are going to distribute our 2 to the x and the y. Luckily with the plus 1, we don't have to worry about that. So we do end up with 2x plus 2y, and then over here is just going to be plus x minus y. And again, we don't have to change the sign because that guy's a plus sign. On the bottom is our common denominator, x minus y, x plus y. I'm going to bring back the bottom problem now just so that it still remains a fraction over a fraction. So that's where that step is. So again, to save a little bit of time, the next thing I'm going to do is, because we have a fraction divided by a fraction, I'm going to keep, change, and flip right away so that we know why the problem is going to look like it is. So this first fraction is going to be that top guy. And I'm going to simplify this, and it appears that we are going to have a 3y, or excuse me, a 3x, and a plus y. And on the bottom, we still have our x minus y, our x plus y. And then we're going to change our sign from division to multiplication. And now we're going to put our x minus y on top and our 1 on the bottom. So again, I dealt with one question completely separate. Just to remind you, I hid the whole thing so it just looked like what we've been doing. Then I brought back the rest of the problem so that we could remember fraction over fraction is a keep, change, flip. So we simplified the top. And then change the sign and this. So the last part is, remember that our fraction bar is a grouping symbol. So we do see that all of that should be grouped even though it's invisible. We're supposed to remember that that happens. So what ends up happening here is all of this will cancel. with all of this, and our final answer will end up being the only thing left on top is our 3x plus y. The only thing left on the bottom is x plus y. And again, because the quantities don't match, this is our final answer. And I will tell you that domain is most likely never going to be asked at this point, just because we have two separate variables, and it would have to be explained that it couldn't be if the sum of x and y were 0, not just x is 0 or y is 0. It would have to be if the sum of x and y was 0. So that's all that I have that I wanted to go over today when I went through and kind of looked at what your practice problems were and what some of the situations that could be causing you trouble with, specifically the complex situation here. Again, this is called a complex. We talked about it a little yesterday, where we had more going on in the fraction than just one operation. I wanted to make sure that we talked about the minus sign, and especially if for some reason one of your fractions didn't exist, like in the first example where it didn't have it as a fraction, so we had to put it over 1. So, does anybody have any questions today that you would like for me to address from either your no-read questions or from the study guides? I know the last one I worked out quite a bit, so I wanted to make sure that you had that bookwork. All right, guys, if you don't have any other questions, I will sign off for today. We will start something new tomorrow. So what I will do is make sure that you have the notes ahead of time, that you can look at them, and we are going to attempt to go one at a time. There's going to be 4 different things that we are going to have to concentrate on, and we're going to do pretty much, I'll answer questions on each topic once a day, and we'll go from there. So if you have no other questions, I hope you guys have a great day, and see you tomorrow.